Hi, thanks for joining us. I am Josue Zapata, lead pastor here at Centerpoint Church, and you're listening to Behind the Point, where we take a deeper dive into Sunday's sermon and address questions that you may have about it. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy today's episode.
Welcome, everyone. Glad that you are joining us today. How was your weekend and everything going?
That's good. That's so like,
I know.
No, it was fine. Are we going to keep going? Do we keep going?
Yeah, that's
fine. No, it was good.
You came over to my house.
I did. I was at your house, and I don't even remember the weekend.
I don't know what you did on
This is
Friday.
not
On
good.
Saturday, you came over.
Oh, Friday. Okay.
For Sam's birthday. My oldest turned 9.
Yes.
So he just had a couple of friends over. So you brought your boys over.
I did.
They wanted to play video games and stuff.
Friday was the first day that I actually had to myself all summer because my kids are back in school.
Yeah.
So I actually was off, and I sat and I watched a movie called Apocalypto. It's a Mel Gibson. Have you seen it? Mm-hmm. I was very upset when I realized I had to. Did I tell you about this?
Oh yeah, you had to read the whole time.
Read the subtitles the whole time. I'm like, man. And then I was too far into it.
You're so lazy.
Yeah, it was a good movie though. I enjoyed it. It was interesting. Anyways, that was about all I did on Friday. Picked up the kids, and then it was good. Trying to still figure out schedules with 2 different campuses now, middle school and elementary. But then Saturday,
adjusting well to school.
Yeah, they are. They're doing good. They're enjoying it. I was really worried for Noah because he's by himself at a new campus, but one of the kids from church is at the school.
Oh,
and
that's
then
nice.
There's a couple of kids. It's an unfortunate thing, but it's one of the kids that's like the worst behaved kid in 5th grade managed to go to that school. So that's one of the only ones he knows. So I'm like, listen, stay away from that kid.
Yeah.
Right? But no,
don't let him influence you.
They're doing good. They're doing good. And then Saturday, we were at your house.
Yeah.
We came over for Sam's birthday, and it was fun. Kids played video games, and you and I
We
sat
played
there
a little bit with them.
Yeah.
Did you win the race?
I didn't. I came in second,
Okay.
and you came in first, though.
I
Good
did, the
job.
one that I played
each
them,
time. I was like, Jeff, stop
I was
yelling,
asking
stop
him
yelling
before.
at the
It was
kids.
kind of
No,
a
I'm kidding.
hustle. I'm like, wait, what button do you push?
Yeah.
And stuff. And I'm like, first place. It was fun. Yeah, it was
Jeff
nice.
was yelling at the kids at one point, so no.
I know. Well, I did have my youngest because he's on top of his brother, like pinching him
I
and
know.
biting or something.
Yeah.
But
No, it was fun. We had
It
a
was
good
nice.
time.
Yeah.
And then went home.
It's fun to see our kids playing together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was like a video game party, so
Yeah.
they played video games the whole time. So it's cool.
My boys just started their school year today. So Josh started kindergarten, Sam 4th grade. But they did good. So we had the drop off this morning.
Cool. Very good.
Yeah. Carrie and I went together with them, so it was fun.
Very good.
Yeah. I was wondering, Josh is like, he's very resistant to go into places a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
He's a homebody. But even church, like he does fine once he's here, but even sometimes he's still like drop off is an issue.
Yeah.
But he walked right in. So we're proud of him. He did good.
Good.
Well, today's episode, I just wanted to give a warning for parents if there's any little ears around. We're going to talk about some grown-up things. And so...
Like what?
Like Song of Songs and sex and other things. So just a heads up.
Yeah.
If you want to hold off on your kids, if you haven't talked about it yet, you might not want to listen to this episode. But otherwise, we talked yesterday, our 9th week on how to read the Bible. Is that a 10-week series that we're doing?
9 weeks, yeah.
So that was your last one. I'll finish
Yeah,
it
you
up this
finish
coming
it
week
this
with
week.
Revelation. But you talked about how to read the wisdom books.
Correct.
And you identified specifically the 4 songs, Psalms, and some others. Sometimes get
Some
wrapped
of the prophetic,
into it.
but it's only specific chapters
Yeah.
in those books. None of them are the entirety of those books
Yeah.
is not considered wisdom.
So you had Proverbs,
Right.
Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs,
And Job.
and Job. That's right. Yeah. So I think you were kind of joking that Revelation is the hardest, and I think in a lot of ways it is coming up. I'm like, how do I narrow that in 30 minutes? But I think maybe you had the hardest message because you talked about suffering, sex, and like no guarantees in life,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
So we'll break that down. But it was encouraging. I don't know if you felt this way, but I was encouraged to hear the congregation say for transformation, because you're like, we're not just reading to read, we're reading for.
Right.
And like everyone, at least the services
It's always
I was
good
in,
when they catch on to that and
Yeah.
they're able to engage and respond accordingly.
because that
So,
was really that's been the emphasis during this series is we want to read the Bible
transformation.
for transformation, and so it's kind of cool just to see that our people at the church have really picked up on that. So you talked about how fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. and that comes right out of Proverbs and some other places. Fear being a reverence that we have for God. What would you say? Where do you see a lack of reverence towards God in our culture, and the negative impact on that? Is that is the fear of the Lord missing? Is that a big part of what's going wrong in our world and our culture?
When you say culture, you're not talking about specifically the church. You're talking about
America, I guess, or Inland Empire, California, wherever it may be.
Yeah, I think there is. The obvious is the sexual immorality. So you've probably heard the saying before that when the truth becomes offensive when your culture embraces the lies. So I think that's a big part of what it is. We see a lot of people, there's a lot of animosity from the world, let's call it anybody who's not the church.
Yeah.
There's a lot of animosity on the world's behalf towards the church because the church has held her ground on biblical values.
Yeah.
Sexual immorality, how we treat one another, and so forth. All those things that the Bible has, the church has held her ground on a biblical level to those things. So now we have become the quote unquote bigots. We have become the controlling ones. We have become this stuff. But culture has said, no. All of these things are okay.
Yep.
It's fine to go out and I know I used the analogy yesterday, but to test drive the car, right? Before you buy it. It's okay to. Divorce is fine. It's not a big deal. If you only get one life, don't waste it on this one individual, right? Like if you're not happy, just do this. Or it's fine to, abortion's totally okay. It's not really alive. And all these things, like we have embraced all of this has become so pervasive in our culture that we have completely ignored, or to answer your question, the world has ignored all of that. There's no more reverence, fear of the Lord, that now the Christian worldview has become a narrow worldview, a foolish worldview, which is ironic that Proverbs talks about wisdom being a choice. It's the way of wisdom or the way of the foolish. And the world claims to have the right view on it, but in reality, all they've done is taken the way of the foolish. So I would say just the lack of biblical conviction, a biblical worldview, is indicative of how there is no fear of the Lord today.
I was just listening to, I was looking on my phone right now, the name, her name's Phoenix Hayes, and she's a Christian apologist. She's written some books and other things about kind of church and culture. And she was saying that she's like, education and other things have taken God out of it as if that's a neutral approach. But it can't be a neutral approach because that's like the most reasonable thing is that there's God who's a creator. And so it's like he can't really be removed from anything because that's like now you're not facing reality. And so, but our culture has kind of said, well, let's start to not offend anyone. Let's almost assume of every topic we're approaching that there's not a God or that's just an option. And it really does wreck a lot of ways that we see things.
Well, you hear a lot of these apologists who get engaged. There's this page that I follow online. It's an anti-abortion stance that they take, and they engage with people on the street all the time. And the number one argument people want these advocates to avoid, they say, can you defend the pro-life movement without mentioning the Bible? And he's like, why would I do that? Like the whole point is my worldview is through a biblical lens. Yeah. So the reason they ask you to do that is because they can't defend against that. And so they're like, no, just ignore God. He's not real. I don't believe in that. And it's like, okay, fundamentally, we've reached where our disagreement is. And that's why you and I cannot, and we'll never see eye to eye. But to remove God from the picture, in my opinion, would be to compromise all of that. And you've got some amazing apologists out there. Frank Turek, for example, is a great example. Was really good at saying, okay, fine, let's remove God from the picture. Explain to me where you get your morals from then. Like that has nothing to do with God. Explain that to me. And the point he ultimately comes to is you get that from God. Do you see why it's impossible to remove this? And so there's a lot of people who have done a good job at that. But I think we would do a huge disservice to try and take that neutral approach. It'd be a huge disservice. Like we're better off holding
Yeah.
to those biblical values.
There's in that same interview I was listening to, they were talking about how some say, well, people are just inherently good. And they gave some examples of it, like Rousseau. He was like an explorer, and I forget like all that he did, but he had that perspective of being, people are inherently good. But he ended up putting all of his kids into the foster system because he didn't want to parent them. So it's like this guy that says, that people have this inherent, goodness to them, does something that's just horrific.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's like, who could, if you kind of just observe a lot of these people that have these like other approaches, oftentimes there's just such a like evidence of evil in their lives and brokenness. Well, let's get into your message a little more. So your first, you basically had a point for each of the 4 wisdom books of how we should approach them. So the first point was that Proverbs teaches general principles, not legal promises. And your point was that these things don't always come to pass.
Correct.
But generally speaking, they're good methods to follow. More often than not, if you follow these patterns, things are going to go better for you. Do you have any favorite Proverbs? I was just kind of curious. Are there any that
That's a good question.
that have stood out to you, or some like kind of trends of them?
I don't know that I have a specific, like a favorite proverb, but there's a genre that I like.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I
You
like
can share that.
I like the accountability proverbs, and
Okay.
I have them in my sermon, but I did not use them. Let me find them real quick. Oops, I'm in the wrong one. Sorry. Oh no, that was the right one.
And would you share, if you're going to read a couple of them, would you share kind of the principle behind it? Because your whole point being, we take the general principles, not the legal guarantee.
So it's what I mean by like genre. I like accountability ones. So my favorite worship songs are the declarative ones.
Okay.
That you get to declare something
Who
about
God
God.
is,
Yeah.
okay.
So those are my favorite kinds. So
Yeah.
as it pertains to the Proverbs, it's the ones that are for accountability.
Yeah.
I like the accountability. So a couple of them that I have here. Let me see. Proverbs 12:1. Loving discipline means loving knowledge, and hating correction is stupid. So that's the principle behind that is there is wisdom. There is a benefit to having been corrected, even receiving discipline to a certain extent. And again, here's part of where it starts to fall apart. The general principle is that the discipline is appropriate.
Right.
It's not abuse. It's not, kicking you when you're down. That's not what he's saying. It's talking about appropriate discipline. So you have to keep all of those things in mind as you go through there. And to hate correction is stupid. You will make the foolish decision if you refuse any kind of correction in your life. That would be a wildly inappropriate thing to do. Let me see. What are some of the other ones? Here's one on friendship. Proverbs 27:17. Friends improve and shape each other through close interaction. So there's great accountability there. If I see you doing something wrong, you see me doing something wrong, I would hope you would call me out on that. And we shape one another.
Right.
Like iron sharpens iron and so forth. That's the idea behind that.
And positive too, through just affirmation and encouragement.
Yep, absolutely. There's here's another one. Proverbs 15:10. Severe discipline awaits anyone who leaves the right path, and hating correction leads to death. Again, very similar to some of them, but they're themes that I follow, so I kind of broke them up that way if I was going to go into it. But that's why I ended up going with one that's a dad proverb.
Yeah, I like what you shared
because it was easier for me to relate with that.
That was a great example of your point of general principles. It's generally speaking, if you send your kids down the right path, there's a very good chance that they're going to continue to follow the Lord or be good citizens or whatnot. But that's not a guarantee because sometimes, every person makes decisions for themselves. They have to make a choice to follow Christ.
Right.
They have to make a choice to do good.
Right.
But, can I share a couple of mine?
Yeah, please.
So one of my favorite is Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. But just this trusting God.
Does that fall under? There's like themes under Proverbs. What is that one?
I'm not sure. Like what the category
There's accountability.
would be.
There's the there's like an admonishment. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm veering off track.
But the whole point is trusting God not on our own understanding. And that's such a key to life.
Absolutely.
It's just at the end, like the more that we lean on God, the more we're going to be on that right path, not just guiding our own path. Another one though, that I wanted to bring up was Proverbs 20:14. I thought this one is just, I remember reading this when I was working at a hotel and working in customer service. And it says, no good, says the buyer, and then goes on and boasts about their purchase. And it's like we see this with
Yeah.
people sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, they're in front of you just like, no, this isn't a good deal. This isn't worth it. I'm getting ripped off. And they'll kind of swindle you or whatever. And then they go off and brag to their friends like, I got this room
Look at how
for
good
super
of a deal I got,
cheap, or
yeah.
I got this, and I got the best deal. But I just thought, man, that's I don't know, 2,500-year-old plus proverb that still holds true in our economy, our customer service today. But I just loved the relevance of it, even though it's so old. So I picked a couple or three proverbs. I was gonna see if you could just kind of explain these for me. Do your best to. What is the general principle behind it, and maybe give just a little bit of help to these. So I kind of looked up what are some difficult proverbs. So if you don't know, that's okay. You don't have all wisdom. Okay, so I guarantee you these will be familiar to you. So the first one is Proverbs 26:4-5. It sounds contradictory. It says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be
And the
just
very
like
next
him."
verse.
So it says, don't answer a fool, right? But then the very next verse says, answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. Is that a contradiction in scripture? Is that a typo? Is the author of Proverbs an idiot for putting those next to each other?
People have used this argument as a way of saying there's a contradiction.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's intentional.
It is very intentional, and the qualifier is the second half of each verse. Or you yourself will be just like him, or he will be wise in his own eyes.
Right.
Those are the qualifiers. That's there's a very clear distinction. I would argue that the primary principle behind this is that, and I'm going to use them both together at the same time. There's two things to take away from this. Number one, there's a time to just walk away from a fool.
Yeah.
There are people, I'm sure we all know somebody, and I would argue this is probably just in that order, the way number 4 is, do not answer a fool according to his folly, you yourself will be just like him. There are people we all know who just want to argue for argument's sake. Damien's raising his hand. There are people who want to argue just for argument's sake. And here's the thing, it goes beyond that. It's worse than that. There are people who want to be contrarians just to be contrarian. They will say, you're wrong, I don't believe it, you're wrong, and they'll argue their case so strong. They'll say, no. Even to the absurdity. They're just like, no, this is this, and you're just like, you don't even, on your side, as you're engaging in this conversation, you come to the conclusion, I don't even believe that you believe that because of how foolish it sounds. That's what they're talking about. When you get to that point where you're
they just want to agitate you.
Just walk away.
Yeah.
It's because at some point you engage with such a stupid argument that, and I don't mean it to say the person is stupid. I'm saying they have made such a foolish and stupid argument that to even engage in that is foolish.
Yeah.
It's just you're wasting your time.
cells.
You literally are, and so don't do that.
Yeah, it's making you more foolish.
Right. Don't do that. It's foolish. The second half of this, so that's verse 6, verse 5. Answer a fool according to his folly. This time you're encouraged to do it.
Yeah.
Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes.
Yeah.
Now, the distinction here is that this person is not trying to be contrarian. They legitimately believe something that is foolish.
Yeah.
And it's our role as people who have chosen the way of wisdom to say, listen, you are completely out of line with that. That's not what that means. Try to help that person. Otherwise, they will think they're wise in their own eyes. They're going to go on for the rest of their lives thinking, yeah, this is the correct way of thinking. Yeah, give me a foolish argument. Like people who say that God's a woman. Let's just say that, right? And I don't mean this in any way disrespectful, but I would very directly go to the text that say God has chosen to reveal himself in the masculine. It is inappropriate to refer to him as anything other than that.
Yeah. God the mother.
And I would be done with the conversation right there. That's it. That's as far as I would go. Like, sure, I'm willing to hear you out on what it is, but let me help you understand why I disagree with that.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to come to an agreement on this, that's where the conversation ends. Like, I wouldn't, in no way, shape, or form. No. In no way, shape, or form is this a contradiction? But basically, there's a time to avoid a conversation and there's a time to step in.
Yeah. I also would take it, I think it's intentionally put together there even too, to be like, fools will be fools.
Correct.
There's no way to win them over per se. It's like you speak up, it's not going to help the situation. You avoid speaking, it's not going to change their situation. And so I think that's also part of the like pairing of those together.
I would clarify because the language of fool is it's very derogatory today to say. So I would clarify when the Bible says do not answer a fool or answer a fool, it's not referring to someone who disagrees with us immediately as a fool.
Correct.
It's saying somebody who intentionally knows, who is intentionally being contrarian, argumentative, agitating. That's the person it's referring to, not someone who disagrees with me. That is always a productive conversation.
Or who is ignorantly wrong about something. I mean, we are always learning. There's things we're wrong about.
Absolutely. Engage in those conversations. Those are helpful. Those are healthy.
Jesus says not to call someone a fool. Is it Raka?
Raka.
Yeah. So, and that's when he's talking about like being angry towards someone, call no one a fool. Because he's saying don't insult someone or be rude, calling them those names.
Well, like a prime example, we were just talking on Sunday about somebody who has walked away from the faith. It's Sunday morning, if you remember, we were talking about that. And I was like, I'd love to sit down and just help me understand what you believe now then.
Yeah.
What do you believe? That to me is a helpful conversation. But for me to say like, that's a fool, like I think his decisions were foolish,
and
no
that's
doubt.
a good, even as parents, to say, like with my son, with my kids, as they make mistakes, I'm like, you're not a bad kid,
right?
But what you did was bad. And distinguishing those things, like you're not an idiot, but that was a really stupid thing that you did,
right?
And same thing as we talk to anyone, it's like don't look down on people, but we could call out if something is a foolish behavior, right? The next one is Proverbs 23:14. I put 14 to 14, 13 to 14.
Well, what's it?
23, 13 to 14. And this one, just because it gets kind of used to say that like the Bible is encouraging abuse. You mentioned this a few minutes ago, but this is kind of a common one. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them with the rod, and that's I think what bothers a lot of people in particular. If you punish them with the rod, they will not die. Punish them with the rod and save them from death. Can you just speak a little bit to that? What is it saying? What is it not saying?
So other translations and other verses people have changed it to say, spare the rod, spoil the child.
That's how my dad quoted it to me.
Right. And the idea is that if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. That's what that means. That
withholding discipline.
By withholding discipline, sparing from spanking or something, what happens? The child becomes a spoiled brat. That's what it means. But people misunderstood it to mean, no, you should spare the rod and instead spoil the child.
Oh, goodness.
And so people are mistaking what that means. But what the proverb legitimately says is, do not withhold discipline from a child. Again, let's clarify. Discipline is not equal to abuse.
Correct.
They're very different things. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them, and let's just avoid with the rod, because that's a cultural thing.
Sure.
So that's a cultural custom that they would take a rod and whoop you with it, right?
Yeah.
So if let's just leave it with this. If you punish them, they're not going to die. They'll be okay.
Right.
If your kid cries because you raised your voice, you're fine. Like my daughter, I have a strong voice. So when I get upset, if I raise my voice, it scares them. I think all three of my kids, that's the number one. And even my wife has called me out on it before. And I have to be careful with it because it'll get their attention.
Me.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
It'll get
Damien's crying.
Yeah. it will get their attention and it scares them. And my daughter's like, you raised your voice at me. I was like, baby, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to get your attention.
Right.
Like, you've got to be careful. You can't do that. That is not the right, whatever it is, I'm trying to get their attention.
Right. Keeping
Did
on a
did
safe
I get
path.
their attention? Yes. But are they going to die because they cried a couple tears? No, absolutely not. Like,
well, better to cry than get hit by a car from running in the street.
That's
right?
the second half of that,
Yeah.
right? Punish them with the rod and save them from death.
Yeah.
Like, listen, even if it were a cultural thing where you swat them, I would rather they feel that than feel, the death of some other foolish mistake that comes from that.
Right.
Let's say, just the other day, Noah, my oldest, he almost ran out into the street, didn't even look. And I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, I would rather he hear it from me and be upset that I raised my voice at him than have to peel him off the street. Like, I would any day, in a moment's notice, I would rather he hear that. And that's the general principle here. Discipline is not bad if it's for the betterment of the child. They're not going to die because they had to cry a few tears.
Right.
They will live.
Even their behavior. It's like stopping them from complete disrespect and other things. That's just going down a bad path.
Yeah.
So
imagine their if I can correct the disrespect now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
But if I can stop the disrespect now, that will save them from being disrespectful to someone later on down the road who could end up firing them, who could respond back in kind, who could hurt them, who could really be offended by that. Someone who is a fool who responds poorly. That's the kind of stuff you want to do. Absolutely.
Good. One more here is, can you explain? I picked just kind of a random one. There's a lot of proverbs about work, like a good work ethic and kind of working hard and whatnot. So here's one of them. Proverbs 10:4 says, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Anything you want to just speak to, like kind of principle?
I guess there's two things I think we can pull from that. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. I think the obvious one is don't be lazy. If you don't use your time accordingly, if you don't work hard, if you don't, you're not going to, I think that's an easy, obvious one. But I would probably take something like this and use it also for don't waste time. That's probably what I hate to waste time. If we're going somewhere as a family and we forget something, oh my gosh, it makes me so angry to have to turn around and because we forgot one thing. Like, I think this is why most men, they don't like to have to exit the freeway when they've been driving for a long time, because really in our heads we're all having a race with all the people around us, and then when you get to see all the cars go by you, it's like it's a waste of time. Versus if you're like, everybody go potty, everybody been to the store, we're not going to stop, we're not going to do this, and then that truck that you work so hard to get around, like all of a sudden goes flying past you.
All my hard work,
all your hard work,
out
right?
the window.
You see, there it is, right there. It's all. That's what it is. Diligent hands bring wealth. Like it's that. To me, it's a. Sorry, I know it's probably a very superficial reading of that, but I would like lazy hands make for poverty. Like you're not going to do well if you're lazy, if you don't. This is a big part of why I mentioned on Sunday the biblical author in no way, shape, or form. Now this was for Ecclesiastes, but still the principle applies. In no way are they condoning apathy, laziness, indifference. None of that in any way, shape, or form. The goal is to work hard. Diligent hands bring wealth. If you work hard, if you don't waste time, if you're proactive with the things that you do, in general, it will go well for you. But if you're not, if you're lazy, if you're a sloth, if you're indifferent, if you don't care, good luck. Good luck. You're gonna be begging for scraps later on. Like you're just so
good. One more thing with Proverbs is Proverbs 31, the end of the chapter, verses 10 through 31, talks about a
virtuous woman.
The virtuous woman. Mm-hmm. Is there any woman? Don't say your wife. I was gonna say, is there any woman who can live up to all of the descriptions in Proverbs 31? Maybe Stephanie can. I don't know. I don't. The reason I ask is because I think sometimes this chapter gets kind of held over women,
right?
As far as, well, you should hit all of these things if you're going to be this virtuous woman. But it's a big list. It's like,
I don't think there's anything in here that is supernatural in the sense that she can
it's
do.
Impossible.
It's that it's inhuman. That it's
right. Sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. I think yes, but I agree with you. I think it has been misused at times to say, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing, so you're not a noble woman. Like, no, this is what the biblical author is doing here is describing all of the things he appreciates of his wife, the things that she does, her shrewdness, the savviness, the diligence, the waking up early, the buying, the selling, the taking care of business, the making meals, the making this. He's simply describing all of those things.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what it comes down to is verse 10, a wife of noble character, who can find? That's what it is. Like, the point is he's trying to say, like, man, that she is so rare and such a gem that, like, value her for what she
Yeah.
what she
She's a
is, what
treasure.
she provides, who she is. Yeah, value her. She's so worth so much more than rubies. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. And there are many.
There are
women who
many
noble
of
character.
them. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, though. This doesn't mean that they're perfect at this. To
Right.
be clear, they will fail. They will make mistakes. But the point is, like, hey, they're still worth so much more. The fact that they get back up and pick themselves up and work
Yeah.
hard, absolutely. I think yes, there are many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next thing
Including my
is
wife.
what's that?
I said including my wife.
I'll timestamp this. You can sure.
There you go. Thank
Damien
you.
said, would you say
Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to say it? Oh,
Sure,
would
you
you?
can
Would you? You're like, I can't read that. Like almost like the fruits of her actions, like highlighting the fruits
Yes.
of what she's doing.
Correct.
In order to show her noble character.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's going to be with what you have. I mean, if you don't have business stuff, because it talks about here she gets up early and does it. If you don't have that, like, it's not fair to say she's not noble because she's not doing that.
Right.
It's making the best with what you have. Like, is this very silly example, but I'll use my wife as an example. I think it's my favorite thing in the world. My wife will make what are called mishmash dinners. I'll walk into the pantry. I'm looking in the fridge. I'm looking in all the cabinets. I can't find a thing to eat. And my wife she's like, "Are you hungry?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she shows up with like a 3-course gourmet meal. I'm like, "Where did you find this? Like, how did you?" And then it's all like these things that she's like, "Oh, just kind of put together a bunch of stuff, and here you go. Like, here's." I'm like, "This is amazing!" Like, the ability to see that and to discern. It could just be that I'm lazy. I don't know. It's very possible. But I would attribute that to her ability to see a situation
Sure.
and make the best of it.
Yeah.
To be able to do something, and that's
It's a
what
good-
she's done, and she
it's a
does that
good
all
gift
the
and
time.
skill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one example
Sure.
of that. But all of those things, absolutely. I think that's a great point. It's attributing, giving credit to all the qualities that she
Yep.
has. Yeah.
Good. So the second book that we talked about was Song of Songs, and you said this celebrates the covenant of marriage. And right away you said sex.
Yeah.
To grab everyone's attention.
Yeah.
You said there's nothing weird or awkward about Song of Songs. My question is, have you ever read it? There's some weird. I think it's a little bit strange, at least in our context. Now that we read it, there's like your teeth are like flocks of what is it? I forget what animal.
Yeah.
But it's very
Like
descriptive
ox-
of body.
Is it like
Ibex or something like that.
something?
Yeah, mention.
Yeah, I
What would
forgot.
you say now?
I know. Your teeth are very white. Pearls or something. I don't know. It's funny. A lot of the imagery in it is very like animals and fruit and other things that.
But I mean,
describing body
in its
parts.
context, it's perfect.
Yeah.
In its context, it's
Yeah, in
perfect
its
to
day, it
describe
was
that.
very normal.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we were to simply reword that for appropriate illustrations today,
Yeah.
is there anything weird about it?
Yeah, we would just use our own descriptions and imagery. I'll be honest. Sometimes I read part of it and I think, are these innuendos here, or is it?
I'm sure they
Yeah.
were. There are parts that I'm
There are
convinced are
parts,
innuendos.
but then there's parts I'm like, is this like literally talking about a garden, or is this talking about sex or something? It's a little
I
bit tough
think
to
the
read.
ones that are very specific, I think there are very legitimate sexual innuendos in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
but it
100%.
is it's celebrating sex within the context of a
Yeah.
marriage, and engagement, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Right? Do you think Solomon was the author?
I do. I know a
'Cause
lot
some,
of people disagree
some
with that.
translations call it Song of Solomon, right?
Yeah, I do.
So there's debate just because of.
I
like,
think
the
there's
time
plenty
the
of
writing.
evidence enough to suggest that it
Yeah.
was him. But if we
Yeah.
disagree, fine, whatever.
The weird thing about Solomon, though, is later he has so many wives. So it's like, was it early on if he wrote this or something? But, the book celebrates sex, like I said, in the context of marriage between a man and a woman. So it celebrates this sex as this beautiful thing. But some people ask, why then has he kept it from those who are single or those who are have same sex attractions? Like if sex is such a great thing, why would he keep it from people? like it's limited to a certain context.
Wait, say that again?
Why has God limited sex to just being between a married couple, men and women?
But what did you
If
say
it's
about
a
being
good
single or same-sex attraction?
They wouldn't be someone that's celibate, like someone that's single their whole life wouldn't be able to enjoy sex. Someone who's same-sex attraction or has other attractions wouldn't be able to enjoy that according to God's word. Like, why would God create something so good but limit it just to such a small group? You never heard people ask that?
I'm
So only the
I'm-
context of marriage.
Yeah, like-
I guess I'm kind of conflicted by the question, but let me try and answer
Okay.
what you mean by it. So why create such a good thing and keep it only for marriage? Let's
Yeah.
start with that. Okay?
Correct. Yeah, that's
I-
really what I'm getting at.
Okay, I think it's simply a gift for the covenant of marriage, because the whole point is there's a covenant, and if let's break it down to just a legal document. If this, then this, right? And so there's benefits and curses to
Yeah.
each covenant. The benefit here is sex. If we're talking about the covenant of marriage,
Yeah.
the benefit is like you get to enjoy each other's bodies. You get to enjoy the gift of sex and all that comes with that. Like an unrestrained there's no limitations, no barriers in that. Like by all means, have fun, go for it. But the curses that come with that is it is very painful if you breach this contract. Incredibly painful. So it is limited to the covenant of marriage for those who enter genuinely and faithfully into this. And here's the amazing blessing that comes with this. Now, that's one thing I would say there. Why keep it from singles? Well, I mean, it's like it takes two.
Right, sure. Sure. Why are you not committing in a relationship or?
Yeah, I would say at that point it's simply, I have no other answer to offer you except to say that it's biblically designed for the covenant of marriage.
Yeah.
So if you're single, it's not kept from you,
Yeah.
it's kept from the life of singleness.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy sex if and when you get married. By all means, go right ahead. That's the purpose of it. But I will also go as far as to say you can live your life without sex. That kind of hurts to say a little bit. I don't know. I couldn't get that one out. But, you can, in fact, live without sex. And that brings us to the third part, because there are people who are, in fact, called to celibacy, which those who are celibate, they'll even tell you, like, I'm not really interested in it. They're not off-put by it, but they're just simply not interested. And that's, people often ask, like, how do you know if you have the gift of celibacy? It was like, do you have a desire to have sex? Yeah, then you're not celibate. Like that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
But most people that I know, and I know a few of them who legitimately believe they're called to a life of celibacy, they're simply not interested in sex or even really a romantic relationship with anybody. The part that I'm conflicted with here is, why would God keep it from same-sex attraction?
Yeah, I guess like in the church we understand God created sex to be for a man and a woman in the context of marriage. But on the outside of the church, there's a lot of people that think Christians are just very oppressive. Why have you limited sex to just that, to marriage between a man and a woman?
Well,
when it's that's someone's identity, they'll say, or that's like, that's a part of their life. Why would God keep something that's enjoyable from them?
I would go back to what we were previously talking about with Proverbs, the way of the foolish. The world has said this is so good
Right.
that it should be enjoyed by anyone, with anyone, wherever you want. And I would simply say that is not biblical. That's not correct. So same-sex attraction, because it's sinful. The Bible says that is a sinful act.
Yeah.
It's supposed to. I love the way Hill and Walton described that. It's the God-ordained goodness that is supposed to take place, celebrating the propriety and the sexual expression between the one man and one woman relationship, the matrimony of the covenant of marriage. Like I would simply say that, like it can't extend into those areas, even if culture says it can. I simply disagree with that, because the Bible has made it clear that it is confined for the covenant of marriage between, as biblically defined, between one man and one woman for life.
Yeah,
Like, that's
good
where
as it may appear, as like culture's trying to sell it, it's actually very harmful to the individual, to
Absolutely.
culture.
Correct.
because God has said this is like he has put his limitations for a reason, and it's hard. And there's probably other areas too. People don't fully understand why would God restrict this or command this or that. But he always has a reason for his good and for his glory.
I wouldn't even
for the
view it.
betterment.
It's frustrating. I understand why they do it. Don't get me wrong, but I would never say God restricted it. I say God gave complete freedom in it within the covenant of marriage. That's what it is.
Well,
But people see that as a restriction. So I can
Yeah,
only have
well,
sex
it's-
with my wife. I can only have sex with
Yeah.
my husband. Yes, that's the point. That's
Yeah.
the freedom. You don't have to worry about any disease. You don't have to worry about infidelity.
Right.
You don't have to worry about any of that. That's the beauty. There's
Well,
the
it is
freedom.
it is a restriction to some degree, but it's healthy barriers.
I
guardrails.
wouldn't- I just
mean,
wouldn't
when you
define
say
it as restriction.
Guardrails are keeping you away from certain areas, but those are there for our benefit.
Yeah, I still don't
I
know
guess
that
I
would line
have
up with
some
that.
compassion for those that are like, I could never engage in sex because I'm not attracted to the opposite sex,
Mm-hmm.
or I would like to be married, but I'd not found the right woman or man in my
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
life. So I get that it's hard, but I agree with you. You don't have to have sex. Pop culture's made it way bigger deal than it
Sure.
is.
Yeah.
It's like in marriage, it's such a small percentage of your relationship together is actually even engaged in sex. And so I think it's like it's been
That's
bumped up way more than
that's a
half.
whole other layer of complexity, though. That
Yeah.
what culture has. It's not just our culture, but everything that creates culture. To you, just the example you gave with pop culture, everything on social media, conversations, even in school.
Yeah.
It's
Well, now
taught, and it's-
education, now
yeah,
the medical
it's
field is
everywhere.
jumping
It's
in on the
everywhere.
conversation.
And it's
Yeah.
but that's the thing, though. All of this is it comes because of the complexity of trying to take something that was designed only for the covenant of marriage and
Yeah.
say it's fine everywhere else.
Right.
And that's where
Right.
all of these things come from. If we knew no matter what this happens here, I think life would be better in general. Marriages would look different. They would be stronger. They would be healthier. We
Right.
wouldn't have all of these
Right. Issues.
issues. Yeah.
So there's lots of sins. There's a ton of different ways that people sin. Why do Christians, and maybe pastors in particular, why do we spend a bit of time talking about sexual immorality and maybe even specifically some of the things like homosexuality? Why does that get maybe a little bit more conversation time in the church versus anger versus I don't know, theft, like stealing, lying, some other things, at least from the eyes of others? Why is the church obsessed, some would say, about talking about these issues?
I certainly wouldn't say that the church is obsessed with it.
Yeah, I would agree.
We are simply addressing what has become pervasive in our culture. Our culture celebrates sexual immorality. As a church, it is our role, it is our responsibility to address what the Bible says about that, and to differentiate for our people who have become so they're immersed in all of this, and so they need to be able to identify, and most of them can. They are wise and smart enough to be able to do that, but the world has solid arguments for why you should be able to have sex outside of marriage, why you should be able to engage in this homosexual relationship, why you should. The world's got solid arguments for it, and they'll say they'll make an emotional plea about you love who you love, and this is science, and this is that, and they'll give you all this information. It's like, I get that, I hear everything you're saying. What I'm telling you is I disagree because of what Scripture says. And here is what the Bible, everything that you're describing is what the Bible describes as sexual immorality.
Yeah.
You are celebrating that. I cannot, because Scripture says this is sexually immoral.
Yeah.
So we are almost obligated. I would in no way, shape, or form say it's an obsession, but we are obligated to address what is pervasive in our culture.
Yeah.
If we had an epidemic of stealing, we'd start talking about stealing.
Yeah.
If we had an epidemic about lying, people lying we'd start addressing that. We would start talking about that. But right now, this is the primary issue that we're dealing with. A couple years ago, abortion. I have never been afraid to talk about abortion. I'll never shy away from that. But people, even in the church, some people got upset that we were talking so much about abortion because they disagree. They were influenced by the culture that says it's their choice to do what they want with their bodies, and it's not a living person. It's not that. We had people say that, and we tried to approach them and talk with them, and they refused. They wouldn't talk with us. They wouldn't do anything. But we have to address that because we believe in the sanctity of life.
Right.
This individual had a different perspective, or however many there were, they had different perspectives, and we tried to engage with them. They wanted nothing to do with it. So, okay, sorry. Like, if you don't want to talk, you don't have to. That's fine. But we still need to hold our ground on those things.
You mentioned that when the church did the Song of Songs series sometime back with Dane, that a lot of people didn't even come. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that people feel are so against talking about sex in church? Or so uncomfortable with it when it's such a pervasive part of our society. Mm-hmm. It's in like so many movies and shows. It's talked about in education. It's like it's become such a big deal. Why? Like, any thoughts on why people are so resistant to it?
I would simply say that they've been influenced by the culture.
Yeah,
that culture says
they don't want to hear it. A disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they don't. It's that culture has simply said, "This is for your own self-indulgence." Yeah. Your own self-satisfaction. Sex, even the way it is portrayed in media, in our culture, it's all about your satisfaction.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the mutual satisfaction, the mutual enjoyment. It's all about you get yours and you're good. Like that's the way it's supposed. So when the church starts to talk about something that it's like, oh my goodness, like you're mentioning this and you're like, yeah, read through Song of Songs. It's in Scripture. To enjoy each other's bodies, to enjoy each other's company, to enjoy what comes of sex. Like it is, it's there, and it is first and foremost a gift from God. And we as the church should be the ones leading the charge in celebrating this, the covenant of marriage and all that comes with that. But the world has hijacked it. Yeah. The world has turned it into something totally different that is like, well, no, you haven't signed a permission slip. You can't talk about this and this. That's what they've turned it into. And so it becomes awkward when we talk about it, when in reality it should never be. This is the place that we should feel free to talk about it, understanding full well what it is.
Yeah. And it's kind of almost two camps of people. It's like some don't want the conviction of realizing that whatever they're participating in or supporting, watching, whatever it may be, that it's like that's wicked.
Right.
Or it seems like there's another group. It's like sex is embarrassing because culture has tainted it so much to be an inappropriate thing. I heard someone, because you said something about, Song of Songs is not pornographic or this or that. And I heard someone, I don't know who it was, but someone's like, yes, it is. Well, like, it's not, it's part of the Bible. It's it's only pornographic in someone's mind because of like our view of sex by our culture has tainted that, to think that talking about sex in any context is possibly inappropriate. But yeah. No. Well, let's go to the next one. So enough sex.
What service was that at? I'm curious.
Noon.
It was at noon?
Yeah. I don't know where it came from. Behind me somewhere. I was in the front row though, so everyone was behind me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was sitting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk now about suffering.
Yeah.
Suffered through the sex talk. No. So Job demonstrates the existence of righteous suffering, and believers will suffer at times, right? Job feared God and shunned evil, yet he's suffered tremendously. Will God allow Satan? So in that story, Satan goes to God and asks for permission to afflict Job. And God says, he's like, have you seen my servant Job? There's no one righteous like him. And so Satan asks God for permission to basically harm his family, harm him physically. He has boils on his skin and all these things. Will God allow Satan to afflict us and test us like he did with Job?
I think the fact that we live in this world is an immediate yes to that question. And I would encourage people not to view it as God playing games in heaven with Satan, like, yeah, go ahead and get Josue. Yeah, go get Damien. Go get Jeff.
Yeah.
I would encourage people not to view it that way, because it can come across that way. And I've heard that argument before, like God was just playing.
It's a game.
What did they call it? They said God was, oh, shoot. I don't remember what it was called, but they were basically saying that God's up there like, ha ha ha, look here, try Job, and see if you can get him to. And they tied it together with the wife of Job, who says just curse God and die. Like they tied it together in certain ways. I would encourage people not to view it that way, but rather that everything that happens in life falls under the sovereignty of God, that it does not catch him off guard, that God still has ultimate control. Satan may have some power in this world. He's called the God of this world, and he may have some power in this world now to afflict us, but I can rest assured that none of it has caught God off guard. He knows what the enemy is doing. He knows what is going on, and at times he may intervene. Let's not forget that God said, don't touch him. Then he also said, don't take his life.
Right.
We can't ignore those.
Yeah.
God put limits on what he allowed to happen, but we shouldn't ever view that as, if something happens to us, that, well, why didn't God put a limit to this? We should, and that's the thing. That's us asking the question, why me? Why me, right? So instead of, I would encourage people not to view it that way, but rather, again, there's no full explanation we're given. It's just a different perspective on suffering. And I would encourage people to just trust in the sovereignty of God, that none of it has caught him off guard, and that it is all still under his control.
And I would say, and combine that with what the full word of God that we know, the love that Christ has for us. So hold those things in together, whatever. You mentioned that, you just said, not to ask necessarily why me, but in the service you mentioned asking why not me. What can you elaborate on what you meant by that? Like, what does that second question mean? Why not me?
Yeah. The natural question we all want to ask is, why do we have to suffer? We all probably know someone who's a good person who's gone through something bad. People who have died. They were too young. They were a good person. They were so kind. They were so giving, and or this person doesn't deserve that, or this person doesn't deserve that. That's happening to them. And sometimes we're that person, right? Like, I'm a good person. I do nice things. I do that. But that's the problem, is we're now trying to associate it as though we can earn our way to righteousness, that I can be a good enough person that bad things should not happen to me. But the biblical perspective tells us that our works are not what make us righteous. The kindness of our actions are not what make us righteous. Even our most righteous acts are as filthy rags, the Bible says. So why not me? Why not? Why not me, who has the strength of knowing that Christ is King, that in despite anything that goes on, no matter what happens in life, my salvation is set in stone. Nothing is going to change. I can trust in God's sovereignty as a mature Christian. I can do it. So why not me? Why? I would rather suffer so that somebody else who doesn't have that knowledge, who doesn't have that experience, doesn't have to suffer as much. Why not me? I think of this Johnny Erickson Tata, who is, she's phenomenal,
she's
phenomenal. And she considers all of this now. She uses it for the glory of God, the suffering that she has gone through in her life. She uses it for the glory of God. She is someone who would any day could very well say, why not me? Like, I would have preferred this would have happened to me over, in fact, I think she has, if I'm not mistaken, over somebody else, because I have the strength to make it through this. Because God has given me the strength to make it through this. Whereas somebody who has no understanding would suffer tremendously. So why not me?
I remember hearing an interview a long time ago with Tyler Staton, and he's a pastor and author, and he went through a cancer battle. Is that right? And I remember him.
He just got declared cancer-free.
Yeah, actually. He's in cancer-free. He's been in remission, I remember this interview a long time ago. He was talking about he never really felt, he's not against people asking for healing. And in fact, he was like, I prayed with people for that. But he was saying he's like, when he was going through some of that, that wasn't the most urgent thing on his mind to pray for his own healing.
He never did, in fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the church and others were, and he received that. Like, he appreciated people supporting him. But during it, he felt more of a call to, like, how do I suffer? And I thought, well, that's maturity to be able to, like, think about how do I suffer
That
well.
book that we base the Holy Spirit season or the Holy Spirit series on, that book that he wrote, it's called The Familiar Stranger. He wrote that while he was going through chemo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's incredible. That takes a lot of strength and maturity that comes from really, really dwelling in the presence of God.
Yep. Well, let's get to I know we're going a little long today. Sorry, listeners. But I want to hit the fourth point of Ecclesiastes encourages us to live life as a gift from God. So the book itself is pretty pessimistic. A lot of the tone, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. It's a chasing after the wind. And sometimes, isn't it like that meaningless is like a breath? Like some of the translations or something. It's like
that depends on which version of the book you're taking. Are you taking the meaningless as in it's pointless, or meaningless as in it's quick?
Yeah. But some of the translations have like the if I remember correctly, the Hebrew word is almost like it's like a
mist,
breath or something, or mist, right? But it kind of seems, but some of the tone is almost borderline lament, right? Like a lot of it's this person that's kind of wrestling with life a bit. Where did you get the like where do you see the most encouragement in the book? Like, to make that your main point is about living life as a gift from God. Do you see that like at certain points show up in the book?
Yeah. It's an overall tone in the whole book that life is meaningless if it is lived apart from God. That's like everything.
Because if it's just following after other things, working hard and doing these things.
Yeah. And so the reason why the point is worded the way it is Ecclesiastes is in fact so dreary, if you will, that it's pessimistic, to use your word, that it's like, wow, apart from Christ, life would suck. Right? Even Paul says that later on. A different version is, if only for this life we're to have hope, like we're to be pitied most of all. Like, and so even he understood that. And we can view it the same way, which is why I kind of close the point out with that statement of what he's saying is, listen, if all you're going to do is focus on the negative elements of life, then you're absolutely right. Life is meaningless. If nothing else, have a good meal and have a good life. But the point is that because of Christ, because we live our lives in light of Christ, we have every reason to recognize life as a gift. Every single reason. Life is not going to always go your way. Life will not always be fair. Life may throw you curveballs left and right. But if you have Christ, you're good to go. Like it brings meaning to life. And it is no longer meaningless. Everything else that's going on may just be the circumstances, but it doesn't mean that your life is now meaningless.
That's good. You talked about having the right attitude, like not being Debbie Downers. Sorry if there's anyone named Debbie.
I apologize on Sunday night. I didn't even realize that. I was like, sorry if your name's Debbie. So,
how do we keep from being negative when there's so many depressing things in the world around us? You know, we see people sick and dying and wars, and we just saw Colombia just had a major earthquake today, and just so many sad things in the world around us. How do you keep your mind fixed on being joyful and positive?
This morning in my devotional, I read how your attitude can affect your day. You can either choose to have a positive attitude or you can choose to have a negative attitude. And I think that's the number one factor in all of it. Yesterday I was meeting with a guy and I was talking with him and we just got talking about life and some stuff. And I told him, I said, when I get upset about things, it doesn't have to be angry, but if something is bothering me, if I'm worried about something or anything like that, the way I process is I tend to write. So I have an app on my phone that I write everything out. But there is a note that I have on my phone, and I think I've shared this in a sermon before. There's a note that I have on my phone. I don't ever remember writing this note, but it's in my phone. And it has stopped me at times from writing nothing more than a complete complaint all day. Like, I don't like how this turned out, and this didn't go well, and I'm bothered by this and everything, because I have to pass that note to start a new one.
Okay.
And so every time I see this note, it gives my heart like a heart check.
Yeah.
An attitude check,
jump
a way
start.
of thinking check. Because what it says is the most fundamental truth about me is that I am saved and not going to hell. And it just reminds me, like, in comparison to everything else, all of this pales in comparison to this one truth right here. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of crap in life that just sucks. It really does. But you can choose to have a good attitude. You can choose to focus on the fundament. I'm not saying like somebody dies in your life, you're going to be like, oh, what a good day. It's okay to grieve those things. That's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. You had a bad day, you got in a car accident. It's okay to be upset about those things. Please don't hear me say that you should always have, like, because that's weird too. Just as there's Debbie Downers, it's weird for you to be the person who's like, oh, good, I just got rear-ended. Like, okay, that's weird. Don't do that either, right? But the point is, like, don't keep it in perspective.
Right.
Keep it in perspective.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
And that's what I would encourage people to do. Things don't go. My son gets so upset when he loses on his video games. And after Noah, there are people in the world who are dying right now. You got a roof over your head, dude. You got multiple video games you could be playing, and you're mad about this one game that you lost on.
Yep.
You're mad about that. Like, gain some perspective, my friend.
Yeah.
Like, you will be fine. The world is not over, right? So I would just encourage people to keep things in perspective. There are certain things that are just really, really bad.
Yeah.
I get that. But that's what it looks like, to your original question of, actually, I don't think you even brought it up, but the idea of suffering well. That's what it looks like to suffer well, to know at the end of the day, listen, I'm saved and I am not going to hell.
Yeah.
Praise God for that. I'm good to go.
Yep.
So
Awesome. Any final words you want to say?
Final
wisdom?
I want to keep encouraging people to read through it. I have gotten so much good feedback on this series, and I am so thankful for that. Because if you remember, when we first started working on this series, I even told you I'm worried it's going to come across purely academic. And I am so thankful to hear the feedback, the emails that people are sending in, the questions that I've just gotten so much. Several people have asked me, hey, is there a way I can see these sermons elsewhere? And I just remind people, like, all of our sermons are on the website. They're all on YouTube. If you want to watch the whole service, you can check our app. Like, they're all there if you ever want to do those. And so I'm really encouraged by it. I would encourage people to read through a wisdom literature this week and wrestle with those questions. I mean, I gave people questions to consider as they do that, and I love hearing about it. So keep doing that, please. And if you got questions, comments, concerns, email us. We'd love to chat and sit with you and talk with you and wrestle through that together. I'm not promising all the answers by any means, but I'll do my very best to respond. I think we all will. So thanks again. It's been a great series so far. I'm looking forward to Revelation.
Yep, me
So,
too.
are you going to tell us when the Lord returns?
No.
Oh, all right. Never mind that.
Someday. He will return. Jesus is coming back, I promise.
Yeah.
But the timing, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm curious, if you have feedback for us as far as, is this too long? You know, would you rather us break this kind of content into 2 episodes?
That's a good idea.
Are there other things you'd like to see on the podcast for us to talk about or address? Feel free to email us or come up and talk to us. Can't promise we're going to change everything, but if you have some ideas that would make listening even better, let us know.
Can I give one
Yeah.
recommendation? I think we need snacks in here.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Carrots. Gonna be all like, they're going to be like, please stop eating crunchies on the podcast.
We need snacks because I'm hungry.
But yeah, please give us your feedback if you'd like to see anything different.
Awesome.
Otherwise, God bless. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you have not already, subscribe to our show and leave us a review. It helps us out. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and our Centerpoint app. If you would like to submit a question to the podcast, just send us an email to podcast@centerpointchurch.church. Questions can be about anything, even a fun get-to-know-you question. We love those. We hope you're enjoying your day. We'll see you next time.